This meeting is being recorded.
All right, thank you. And with that, we will call this meeting of the Lower Connecticut River Valley Regional Planning Committee to order. It is Monday, May 18th, 2026 at 7 p.m. We're meeting via Zoom teleconference on this warm May evening. With that, if we could just go and do the roll call. Vicky, would you please do that?
I need one more moment. People have just joined. I just need to double check, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm seeing one from RiverCOG that I'm not sure who is here. I know Kevin's on, but I'm not sure who the other person is. Oh, no, actually, there's two RiverCOGs. Oh, Susie. Thank you, Susie.
Yep.
Okay.
And then there's one other RiverCOG. If you could just either turn on your camera or change or update your name.
Okay, I'm going to start while they do that.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so I will announce the members first. If a member from a town is not here, then I will seat the alternate.
Great.
Okay, starting with Deep River, Daniel Smith, Durham, Frank DeFelice, Lyme, Mary Stone, Middletown, Beth Emery, Old Lyme, Howard Markleese, Old Saybrook, Doug McCracken, Portland, Chantel Foster, Westbrook, Bill Neal. Alternates that will be seated from Clinton would be Eddie Alberino, from Cromwell, Anthony LaCava.
Good evening.
Okay, so those are the two that are seated, and then also in attendance is Ray Fusco, Michael Bender, and Marie Farrell.
Very good.
I see RiverCOG staff, Sam Gold, Megan Juflas, Susie Beckman, Kevin Armstrong, and myself, Vicki Harris. Did I miss anybody?
We also have Sandra Childress from the public.
Thank you, Sam.
And I think we have one other RiverCOG staff member. It might be Margot, or maybe someone is logged in twice somehow. Well, anyway.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Vicky, and thank you. Of course, everyone is welcome to participate in discussion. So whether you're seated or not, we look forward to your comments and your thoughts on our discussion tonight. With that, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, let's see. I think Bill Neal, second to Eddie Arborino. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Sure.
All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? I declare the motion passed. With that, we move to item number 5, public comment. Members of the public, this is your opportunity to speak on any matter that you'd like to talk to the commission about. Members of the public? Going once? Twice? 3 times. All right. With that, we will move on to item number 6, approval of the minutes of the March 23rd, 2026 meeting. Mary, we recognize Mary Stone.
We'd like to make a correction. The initial list of committee members at the beginning of the minutes lists former First Selectman David Lom's name, but they need to replace that name with Raymond Fusco, our alternate from Lyme, who's been representing us the last few months.
Thank you very much for letting us know that, Mary. Vicki, will you please take care of that? All right. And then we need a motion to approve the minutes with that change, if it's agreeable.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Is there a second to Mary's motion?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. No abstentions. I declare the motion passed. We will move on to item number 7, referrals. Now for
So,
referrals, let's see who we're going to have handle
so,
this
uh,
this
so, uh,
evening.
so I'll start it off. Just Marcos is out on medical leave, so
Oh, thank you, Sam.
yeah. I'll just share my screen. That might be the best way. I'll just quickly scroll through them and just remind everyone of this is our Laserfiche portal for digital document management. So we can put this link in the chat, and it's in for those who haven't looked at this in a while. It's in reverse chronological order. And we've had quite a number of referrals come in since March, since we last met. And um, I don't know if there's anything that's really that we need to necessarily discuss this evening. Just we've had a slew of zoning map amendments, zoning regulations changes. Um, uh, we've already started seeing referrals for updating regulations from the new Public Act 25-1. So right here, we have a text amendment from Meriden. So it's from our towns, and it's any town that touches our region as well. So we get them from towns that are not in our region. Um, but Durham already has their regulation change in. I thought this was interesting, Colchester amendment for a moratorium of 9 months on mobile homes. Um, so yeah, so we're seeing a lot of activity, but a portion of it is due to updates from the Public Act. Um, and I don't know if any of the members want to want to talk about any of these referrals if they think they're interesting to the members of the RPC. I'm sorry I don't have a fuller report for you, but just the everything is here for review if you're interested in taking a look.
Okay. Members, do you have any interest or comments on any of these particular referrals? And if you do, we're happy to talk about it. This is the time.
Oh, Eddie, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Yeah, but you're not muted.
May have
Oh,
an issue on his end.
yeah. We somehow lost your microphone. I don't know what happened, but
All right, now you're muted. Now you're unmuted. Go ahead, Eddie. We
Okay.
still cannot.
oh, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you now.
I saw Clinton. What was
Okay.
that about?
Oh, yeah. So there's a number of Clinton's zoning map amendments and zoning regulations. So we just received this. So let me tell you what that is. Just give me 1 second. Um, Actually, it has not been assigned. This is for the hearing on June 22nd. It has not
Yep.
been assigned. It's not been assigned to a
Yep.
staff member yet. So I can't call on someone to speak on it yet because we
Yeah.
just received
I
it.
know. I know.
Oh,
I don't know if they refer to everything. Yeah, I'm on planning and zoning. I know that. So that'll be my last meeting. Next month will be my last. I don't want
yeah.
to see if
So
they got it in there.
yeah, we just received that at the end of I think on Friday. So yeah, so our review is just starting, so it hasn't been reviewed by staff. So like
Thank you, Sam.
if I saw someone who I thought would knew, I would call on them, but unfortunately not
Okay.
yet. But
All right.
Is
All
it
right.
typical, I'm sorry, may I ask a question?
okay.
Is it typical
Absolutely.
in these kinds of zoning reviews to address things like in the Clinton one, for instance, there's this whole section on the facade of what this middle housing should consist of. And it kind of seemed to me strange that while if it were in the village district or the historic district, that might be in keeping with what the look of that district might be. But in general, aren't we trying to achieve the goal with middle housing as at least having it references a component of affordability, but by making all these facade requirements, it seems like it's going in the opposite direction.
So this which referral are you referring to? The Clinton?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I think those are comments that we will be making because Megan, maybe you can speak to it.
I was just
I
gonna
just wondered if that was typical that you were seeing that this middle housing and this response to the Public Housing Act, this is kind of par for the course.
There isn't an affordability requirement for the middle housing regulations, but what we are doing is compiling everything that we are seeing from our referrals, and the other COGs are likewise compiling what they're receiving from their referrals. And we're going to create a database of everything that we're seeing that's being done so that we can show some commonalities or best practices or suggestions from what's being done across the state with our members. So I will keep everybody updated as that starts to come together. As Sam mentioned, we've seen quite a few coming in with varying levels of requirements for the developments. Some of them, yes, do include some facade type requirements, and others don't. But that will be in our spreadsheet.
And also just to address the concern that you're raising is that once we take a look at it, I think we will be weighing in on what if that is a best practice or not, if we have that. But typically outside of a historic district or village district, I think you're correct. There are, this really should be your typical site plan review, which would be setbacks, height. Um,
Or
some,
form and
but
structure.
yeah, form and structure, going to the level of a historic district or village district outside of one is probably not allowed. Um, so I think it's, but building articulation typically is, and
Yeah,
might be
building
obeying.
articulation, yeah. But also we can provide comments on things like that, but we're also not policing what people are doing with their
Right.
regulations either. We're just looking for intermunicipal impacts and consistency with our plan.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I understand that. I just wondered if it was typical that we're seeing these sorts of changes. So,
Susie has reviewed a few of them. I don't know if you can comment further.
Go ahead, Susie.
Um, I have looked at probably three of them so far, and some are more detailed than others. But they're all, like Megan said, we're looking at it for consistency with the plan, the regional plan of conservation and development, and for also the impact on Long Island Sound, potential negative impacts. So, but the level of detail changes a little bit. But I have seen in each of the ones that I have read different items that do talk about the form and the articulation of what the long stretch of the building should look like. There should be certain articulations within certain feet. So it is relatively common. I think. I think it will be relatively common. And I think Megan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that the statute allows towns to do that.
Okay. Thank you for responding, Susie. And Marie, are you satisfied or do you have other questions? You're good? Okay. Any others on referrals before we move off? All right. We will move on to item number 8, which is the legislative recap after what was supposed to be a relatively quiet legislative session. It was lots and lots of interesting bills in a very short time. So, Sam, why don't you give us an idea of where things landed?
You are right, Frank. This was supposed to be a short session. Well, it was a short session with little going on in housing, but that was not the case. And there was a lot of last minute drama, particularly with majority roundtables, the majority leaders roundtable bill that ultimately did not pass, which was kind of surprising, but was probably it was a mixed bag. There was good things, there was not so good things in that bill. But I'm going to punt it over to Susie, who prepared a summary for all of you. So, Susie, are you a co-host? Let's see. Or we should make you a co-host so you can share your screen.
I think I was.
And if she
I
isn't,
don't know. Yeah, am I a co-host?
Vicky, if you could make her a
I'm working
co-host.
on it.
Okay.
Thank you. And
And
I'm looking for my list. I'm
and
gonna like.
in the summary that Susie's going to go over, we'll email to you after the meeting.
So I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Can you zoom in, Susie?
Well, let me see.
She's up.
More. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure my microphone was still on. So the key bills that passed during the legislative session were Public Act 26-68, which was Senate Bill number 1, and it made adjustments to the budget that would be ending next year. And it made different provisions to support education and also to provide some tax credits for cost burdened households and for and let me say the homestead property tax exemption that was optional for towns, and those are all based on income tax credits. So it's not on the town to make those to cut their property tax income or revenue. These are all state income tax related changes, allowing people to take credits. I'm looking at quickly just scanning through here. And then PA 26-7, which was House Bill 5288, an act concerning utility connections for accessory dwelling units. This does not allow municipalities or utility companies to put a costly charge on adding a separate new residential connection fee on an ADU. And the concept is to keep housing these ADUs more affordable. The next one, PA 26-9, House Bill 5391, an act strengthening municipal zoning enforcement. The bill updates local municipal powers and allows towns to impose fines for zoning noncompliance when they run into folks and property owners that are consistently non-compliant or are not responding to requests to change their actions or cease and desist. PA 26-63. This was a large bill with several different components to it. One of those components was ensuring that about the school buses in terms of when towns would need to update their school bus fleets, or when school districts would need to update their school bus fleets and make them entirely alternative fuel or electric. I'm looking for something else in here. Let's see. Oh, and the big part that will impact municipalities is it implements various recommendations of the Connecticut DOT. This includes requiring a 14-day notice by towns prior to removal of homeless encampments when they are on a Department of Transportation right-of-way. And I already mentioned the electric school bus adoption. PA 26-21, which was Senate Bill 9, was an act supporting commuters and microtransit services. This extends by 1 year the pilot program for microtransit, which you may be familiar with. It's in RiverCOG region has microtransit. It now I can't remember what it's called. It's on call. It's similar to Lyft and Uber, but at a much lower price. The pilot program's been going very well. It was a 2-year pilot program that's been extended to 1 year. And it also includes increases for funding for Shoreline East. PA 26-12, which was House Bill 5003, has to do with workforce development and working conditions. It extends it adds costs potentially for towns because it extends portal to portal workers. It's called portal to portal workers' compensation coverage, which requires towns to cover public works employees when they are called into work when others are allowed to stay home because of the conditions, snow conditions or what have you. And it could add costs if something happens to that worker on the way in between their home and getting to work. They are eligible for workers' compensation now. It also requires towns, if they terminate a contract, they are required to continue to employ the workers of that contractor for 90 days. And it also then also allows municipalities not participating in CMERS to create a deferred retirement option for their employees. It also creates a grant program for junior firefighter programs run by volunteer fire departments with the goal of bringing in more people to volunteer at our volunteer fire departments. PA 26-65 was House Bill 5525, and that is an act concerning a rapid response program for certain aquatic invasive species. And this is important to make sure that our lakes and rivers are not overrun by invasive species. The sooner we can address them and remove invasive species, the better off we are. PA 26-61 was House Bill 5334, an act concerning riparian buffers, gives or requires Connecticut Deep to hire an employee to conduct training for inland wetlands commissions and also, but not limited to, put in place ways to preserve riparian areas. And then the bills that didn't pass that we need to keep an eye out for next session. Like Frank said, this was supposed to be a quiet session, but there was a flurry of bills that were put forward. We can expect even more when the legislature goes into their long session, their budget year next January. But these are some of the examples, and Sam may want to address this one. One of the bills would have given housing growth plans priority over plans of conservation and development and WPCA plans or sewer plans, I believe. Sam, did you want to say
Yeah.
anything about that?
Yeah. So this was something that came up. This was in the Majority Leaders Roundtable bill, and the reality is, so I guess the concern was that you are working on your new housing plan for your town and where you want to build, and currently the language is that these housing growth plans have to be in conformity with the POCD. Well, what if there's a conflict? Well, it's pretty clear to me that if there was a conflict, you would amend your POCD. Or you would make the housing plan to be in conformity. Like you got two choices there. But I guess this was a third way of just saying that you could ignore the POCD. Maybe that would be merited in for the first iteration of these plans, especially if you're going to be updating your POCD shortly anyway, maybe to save you that extra step. But it seemed a little problematic that particularly because the housing growth plans are not required to have a public comment period and they're not required to have a public hearing. In the Public Act allows the housing growth plan allows you to have a public hearing, but it doesn't require one. And unlike POCDs, which require 60 days, there is no such 60-day requirement for the housing growth plan. So that was my objection here, is that it was that when when the housing growth plan had to conform with the POCD, at least the POCD had gone through some public review. Now you're putting the housing growth plan above the POCD in places. I understand why it was desirable, but I thought it could have been written differently as a limited to this first iteration, or if your POCD is, let's say, within 2 years and needing to be updated and replaced, maybe that made sense. But otherwise, to have that permanently in there it seems like if you want to encourage good planning, you should be raising up the POCD as opposed to creating additional new plans on the outside that are going to struggle to be coordinated with all the other competing interests of conservation, of economic development, of transportation, of public safety, and it seems like the POCD would be the better place to house all this. But anyway, that did not pass. I did happen to run into the majority leader, Rojas, on the street on Friday, and I had a nice chat with him. And I'm gonna see if he maybe now that the session's over, maybe we can get coffee or something up at Trinity. He works up at Trinity College in Hartford. But it may be if I can swing that, I can try to get his thinking behind that provision. And I think it was just meant that to make it easier for planning commissions, but I don't think that the connection to, okay, now you're not going to have any public involvement potentially. I don't think that came up in their thinking. So.
Thank you.
Um,
Moving on to Senate Bill 151.
Actually, Susie, before you do that, I just want to mention a couple of the other provisions in there.
Okay.
There was a couple other provisions in that bill that was supposed to correct some problems in the Public Act. There was one provision, so the COGs receive funding to do housing planning. They received $400,000, $200,000 for housing planning to assist with the housing growth plans and to do specific housing work for the region. Then there was another $200,000 that the language is for stormwater management or solid waste and recycling. And that or was really meant as an or and. So you could take that 200,000 and spend, 100 on waste and 100 on stormwater. Well, it was interpreted by OPM's lawyers as being you had to pick one or the other.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to mute Sandra. That provision to fix that did not occur. We're still waiting for guidance if there's another workaround here, because very soon the COGs will have to submit work plans, and we're going to have to decide: are we going to spend that 200 on stormwater or that on waste planning? So that was another provision. And then the final element I think is worth bringing up is that in the middle housing in commercial districts or mixed use districts, currently there's it's transit community middle housing or mixed use development. The paragraph is the grammar is wonky. The grammar is not great, and that grammar has led and the grammar has led to multiple different interpretations of what that or means. And it really just comes down to who gets to decide what is built in the commercial districts. Is it the municipality who gets to decide, or is it the developer who puts in the application? And that really is the issue here. There was a provision in this bill that would have made it an and. I think to clarify that they wanted to make it the developer, they could get to choose what they built. But even so, I'd heard from one of the COG directors and said that the grammar is still so wonky in there. A lawyer could argue the opposite too. So that change did not pass. So it's still an or, but but as part of our project where we're assisting towns in these updates, we're strongly asking you to refer to your town council, your legal counsel, as to what they are comfortable with what interpretation they're comfortable with, because ultimately we want to make sure that your town's attorney gets a chance to weigh in on that assumption. So okay, so that's it, Susie, for that one.
Okay. So moving on to Senate Bill 151. This particular bill really limited what towns could require in terms of zoning and what they could enforce. And it limited lot sizes to 5,000 square feet, or couldn't it be no larger than 5,000 square feet? The dimensions, the setback requirements, they almost had no setback requirements, or lot coverage, or design or architectural elements. So that was a concern for many of our towns. And this is a bill we'll be looking for again next year, because we do anticipate this will come back. Then House Bill 5396, an act concerning affordable housing development on certain land owned by religious organizations. This was concerning simply because it seemed to favor religious organizations, which could be problematic. And it has no provisions, or it didn't have any provisions to assure that these developments would be available to anyone, that the religious organization couldn't limit it to their congregation or someone who is a member of their congregation. And it was concerning because of where they might be located. They may not be in residential areas. And so there were a number of potential problems that were seen with this particular bill. It did not pass, but we do anticipate it'll be coming back next year. It was also referred to as the Yes in God's Backyard bill. So keep that in mind if you hear it next year. Yeah. Then there were also a couple of different bills. This is one example, House Bill 5364. And these bills were looking at the affordable housing appeals process in 830G, and we're considering different ways to calculate how a town can reach the moratorium level with their affordable housing. HB 5507 was an act promoting the development of accessory dwelling units. This repealed a provision that was in statute, and it was created a couple of years ago, at least 2 years ago now, that allowed municipalities to opt out of a acquired dwelling unit, accessory dwelling unit statute. This particular bill would repeal that and require municipalities to allow dwelling units, accessory dwelling units. And it also added a maximum floor area of not less than 1,000 square feet, which is quite a large accessory dwelling unit. So that's of concern, and we'll be watching for that one again. HB 5502 was about potential housing development in industrial zones or previously zoned for residential use areas. And there's concern about, there's a reason that some areas are zoned industrial, and there's a reason that housing and residential zones are not placed right next to industrial zones. So there are concerns about this being wide open for putting housing in places that probably are not good for the health and welfare of the folks who may be living there potentially. So we'll watch for that. House Bill 5260, an act prohibiting a municipality from imposing a penalty for the performance of certain activities of daily living. This bill would have prohibited municipalities from enforcing local ordinances when homeless people are performing certain activities of daily living, and it explicitly allowed panhandling. So it would not allow towns to enforce their local ordinances. House Bill 5289, an act concerning the publication of municipal legal notices. This was going to remove the requirement that municipalities publish legal notices in print newspapers and would allow the posting of legal notices on municipal websites. It could have saved municipalities tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how big your municipality is. We've been told by CCM it's not likely to come back in 2027. However, if there's a big push from towns, I think it would be hard for the legislature to ignore it. But the majority leader in the Senate, Bob Duff, I believe that was Bob Duff, would not bring it for a vote this year. House Bill 5407 is an act concerning state reimbursement to municipalities for revenue lost due to the tax exemption for veterans with a 100% permanent or total disability rating. This was supposed to make towns whole after they provided these required property tax exemptions to veterans. It did not pass. We hope it'll come back next year. Senate Bill 2, an act supporting local commerce. This took the 1% meal tax that was added to meals and prepared beverages, or prepared meals and beverages, that was added in 2019. And it would have taken that 1% revenue and split it. 50% would have gone to municipalities. The other 50% would have gone into a Connecticut tourism marketing fund, so that the state could do a lot more marketing, and it would have created a revenue stream for municipalities. House Bill 5508 is an act concerning historic districts and historic preservation. It prescribed that the historic district commissions would have to record all of their meetings and then save them. And there were concerns about the costs of the and how narrowly defined this was. So we hope this does not come back next year, but we'll be watching just in case it does. House Bill 5536, an act establishing a state short-term rental registry. This would create a registry at the state level for Airbnbs and short-term rentals that are not your typical hotels, motels, or inns. And it would place the Airbnbs on more of a level playing field with the inns, the hotels, and the motels. And then we get to a Public Act update, or the PA 25-1 update. So I'll stop sharing because I believe Megan probably has a very good update for you.
All right, before we get there, are there any members of the committee that have questions or comments on anything that you've just seen? I know there's a lot there, but Sam, go ahead.
Well, Frank, I just want to highlight Senate Bill 151, which was introduced by the co-chair of Housing Committee. I'm concerned it will come back. That bill would limit the size of lots that towns it can require in subdivisions to 5,000 square feet and 5-foot setbacks if you have public water and sewer. Although that size of lots is very appropriate in lots of places across Connecticut, I think blanket sizes like that may be problematic, and may be particularly problematic in some of the places in our region where you may have other provisions, or you can't have maximum lot coverages. This could be or height limits. And this could be a real concern in beach or lake communities where you have small lots and you want to be respectful of your neighbors. those provisions would go away. There was also it would restart the clock for cuts for parcels in subdivisions, and so you could if you could create three parcels out of one. There's just a lot of things which were blanket provisions statewide, which in the right places are probably very good policies to have. But as a statewide policy may not be will have unintended consequences. And I think that was the gist of our testimony opposing that bill. But I think all since these were bills that we were told weren't be coming forward, and they came forward anyway. I'm sure that we may see some of these in the next session, which will be a long session.
Yeah. And 151, I mean, you're speaking very eloquently, but the fact of the matter is it would destroy zoning as we know it. You know,
Right.
talking lot sizes that are tiny, 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 no setbacks, no this, no that. Um, our towns would look very, very different if this should happen, and going forward. So, Mary, go ahead.
Um, yes, I was going to make the same type of comment on this is a very troubling bill if it becomes law because the whole look of our town and our ability to preserve land and our ability to live within the limits of the land depends on zoning. And if state lawmakers interpret large lot sizes as simply an elitist measure to keep out lower income housing, then they're missing the whole point. And our town will never have sewers, um, and it will never have public water. And most places cannot support a more intensive development, which is why they're zoned the way they are. So this, in addition to changing the aesthetic look, has huge potential to increase groundwater pollution and really mess up communities that have relied on this sort of land management for generations.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I have Beth and then Ray Fusco. Go ahead, Beth.
Yes, I don't know the bill number, but I don't believe it was mentioned, the Golden Girls bill, and I was curious if that would return. That was a bill that would allow you to rent out a room in your house and essentially have roommates, up to X number of roommates, so that towns couldn't legislate against it.
Yeah,
And it was,
Susie, I think is looking that up. Yeah, that's the sort of the single room occupancy bill that would allow more or less legalizes having a room or boarding house.
and I'm just curious if you think there's any hope of that coming back. I was sort of surprised it didn't pass. It seemed like a no-brainer, but
I think there's probably a good chance that that will come back. Many of those housing bills most likely will, especially in the next session.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation about that bill with a reporter, and what it does is it legalizes arrangements that already exist. It's called roommates. Plenty of people have roommates that they may share an apartment with or a house. It may not technically be legal, but it's common enough. Everyone knows what that is, and so I don't I think when it's explained like that, it's I think less scary. Um, um, but uh, but that's really what it is. It's more or less having roommates.
So that's Senate Bill 339, and it was put forth by Martha Marks.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I don't know if it passed.
I don't think it did.
It did not.
did not pass.
All right.
And
Thank you.
and for a lot and when you think about it, like, for young people or, working poor, you may not be able to afford your own place.
Mm,
And it's not that uncommon for people to live with friends. So I don't see it as being, if it's explained that way and it's done properly, I don't see it as being that big of an issue. But yeah, it did not pass this session.
okay.
I also,
Go ahead, Beth.
who knew that it was against the law to even do that? I didn't know until this bill was proposed.
Yeah, I remember when I was like, I don't know, 18 years old, my best friend had me move in with him and his family.
Yeah, yeah.
I lived there for a year.
But yeah, technically, like, yeah, in many places, formerly like renting out bedrooms is not legal. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Beth. Ray Fusco, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So there was thank you for the very thoughtful, thorough review of many, many bills that passed and didn't pass. So there was a few comments around ones that you would like to see move forward and a few that you would not potentially like to see move forward. I was curious if there were some additional information that we might digest and then use to reach out to our own elected officials to talk about why this shouldn't be brought forward, or just sort of helping the cause of lobbying or pushing for things that would be helpful or not helpful. So I know that this was an exhaustive list and you did a great job of going through it. And I know there's a lot of background information to it about who presented and who didn't. But if there was a little bit of a cheat sheet that we could have to maybe do our own outreach as it affects our own individual towns and why we would like to either see it be pushed or not pushed, could be helpful for the collective effort.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I can appreciate what you're asking for, and I'll be happy to put that together.
All
Thank
right.
you.
That's
Put me to
great
work,
answer.
Susie.
Thank you,
You got
Susie.
it.
All right. Very good. Uh, I think we now have the second part of our discussion, which is actually it's item number 10. Other PA-1 housing updates. And Megan, are you going to take care of this?
Yeah, sure. So there are a couple of things that we are working on. The big one right now is the zoning compliance update, which many of you know. RiverCOG hired IMEG, formerly FHI, to work with our towns to draft the regulation amendments to be in compliance with PA 25-1. We're working with 13 of 17 towns, and we were able to do this with the funding that we received, that 200,000 for housing work. So progress on that. All of our initial meetings have been held. We've been sending draft regulations and the conservation and traffic mitigation districts out as they're created, so on a rolling basis. We're now starting to engage in the second round of meetings with those towns to clarify and make revisions as needed. And then some towns are already starting to go to public meeting and refer out to their other agencies as required. IMEG will also potentially be able and available to work with towns on some of the optional provisions or other zoning regulation changes that came up as part of this process, as things that towns might want to change, or need to change based on some of these things, especially regulatory changes that were recommended in your 830J plans. Those would be prioritized as well. But we are extending some of the contract money and time into the next fiscal year to accommodate some of this work on a first come, first served basis.
Okay.
Um,
Any questions or comments for Megan? Yes, Mary, go ahead, please.
Sorry. So I understand that there was a bill that did not pass about extending the deadline for adopting zoning changes based on PA 25-1. Is that bill coming back, or is there any hope for us who are not going to meet the deadline?
So I'll answer that. So the deadline remains July 1st. That was another provision of the Majority Leaders Roundtable bill that didn't pass. That would have pushed the deadline from July 1st to June 1st of next year and given everyone an additional 11 months. But it didn't pass. The good thing is there's no penalty if you're late. But the penalty is if someone put in an application and you didn't have regulations that sort of govern the site plan review or the standards that you'd want for height, setbacks, landscaping, lighting, all the different standards you would put in a site plan review. If you didn't have those adopted and they put in an application, you might be in a difficult position. You might have to approve it. And that's the stick here, is that's the risk. I think in a town like Lyme, the likelihood of you getting a commercial application in a good year is slim. So so I think you're at low risk, but a Middletown or Old Saybrook very well could have someone, and what we're worried about is could someone try to take advantage of that and put in something which they know the town would never approve, and they try to get away with something. That's the real concern. But if your regulations are not up to date on July 1st, there's no penalty. The penalty is just the risk of what happens if someone puts something in and it's a bad application.
Okay.
Thanks. We're moving as fast as we can, but it's not fast enough to meet the deadlines in this bill.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of towns that have that same experience, Mary. We were teetering. I don't know if we're going to make it or not. It'll be close, but it's a good chance that we're going to be late by a month. So, yeah. All right. Any other comments or questions? No? Thank you, Megan, for that report. And with that, we will move on to item number 11, miscellaneous state, regional, and/or local planning issues. So I do have one thing that I just want to remind you all of, and that is that by January 1st of 2027, which is what, 7 months away, 8 months away, your inland wetlands and watercourses commissioners must all have the training that's required now. Previously, the training was only required for at least one person on inland wetlands and watercourses, and I've received that training a long time ago. But even if you have it, you have to redo it again. So all your commission members on inland wetlands and watercourses have to have this 8-hour training program. It is online. There is no cost, but it's time to. If they haven't started already, you want to remind them, hey, you need to do that by the end of the year. Sam, did you have anything under this category?
Nothing necessarily. Trying to think of major things that are going on. Well, we're working on our natural hazard mitigation plan update for 15 of our 17 towns, so that's moving forward. Our Safe Streets and Roads for All plan was wrapped up earlier this year, and the final plan is on our website. We trying to think of other. We are putting out some promotional housing videos, and we've been working on a grant that we received from the State Department of Housing about housing and educating. I don't know if Megan wants to say anything about that, but we've been working on that. And I think other big news is let's see. And we're working on our budget for next year. That's going to be the big thing for the next couple months at RiverCOG is we're working on our budget now that the session's over and we know how much. It's hard to do a budget when someone else is signing the checks. So now that the session's over, we can improve a budget. So we're working hard on that. But Megan, I don't know if you want to give a plug in for the housing project.
Sure. It has had to take a bit of a backseat as we work on all of the PA 25-1 tasks but we will get back into it. One thing that we have been able to do now that we have Carly on board doing our media is we've been starting our release of our short form videos. So there's only a couple of introductions out right now. But if you don't follow RiverCOG on your social media platforms or LinkedIn, please follow and share our short form videos as they come up. Our goal, they're targeted for a general audience, members of the public, with just really quick and relatable and sometimes funny conversations, lighthearted, I should say, about housing topics to just try and get people interested and involved and informed. So the more you can help us spread that around, I think on Instagram we have like 5 followers. So if you could help us promote that, that would be excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much, Megan and Sam. Um, so Sam, one more thing on the natural hazard mitigation plan. Durham does have a letter, an addendum letter that has to go into that plan. I have that letter.
Okay.
You may have a copy already, but the copy that first came out has like a line in the middle of it, and we have a clean copy that's got to go
Okay.
to you.
Yeah. Send that over to me and also Margot. Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, and I guess the last thing I'll bring up is you had hazardous waste collection this past weekend, and my wife and I stopped over there, and it was a great group and a great experience. Every time we go, we're always pleased about the work
Oh,
that RiverCOG does with that.
so, thank you for reminding me about waste. All right. So I think the other big project that I have not mentioned is we've gotten to a decision point on our regional waste authority project. Deep has given many of the COGs funding to do studies about setting up regional waste authorities in the light of the dissolution of MIRA, which was a larger, more statewide regional waste authority. And we're getting to the decision point as to whether to proceed with creating a regional waste authority that could be positioned in the future to work to negotiate better contracts for waste disposal, recycling contracts, or take on new things, new types of whether it be organics, composting, or other things. So the recommendation from our study right now is to proceed. Deep has provided funding to do the work, the legal work of setting a regional waste authority up, and it does not require that the towns actually necessarily use it in the future. But only use it if the towns see fit that's beneficial to them. So the recommendation is to proceed, but that will be decided in the next couple of months, and it would sort of build upon, at least initially, things that we're already doing, whether it be household hazardous waste or paper shredding events or taking on some of the new types of waste that we're trying to divert out of the waste stream, like organics, or finding ways of sharing equipment better between towns, because it may not make sense for towns to necessarily buy an expensive piece of equipment, but in a shared arrangement could make sense, and having an entity like a regional waste authority responsible for that equipment will help police it and make sure that everyone takes care of it. So those are all things that we'll probably be working on, continuing work on, but I think that's a big thing that I think we're looking forward to working on for the second half of this year.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. And are there any comments or questions for Sam or staff or anyone else? Mary Stone. You have to unmute, Mary.
So sorry to comment again, but this is just a general gripe, and I'd like to know if anyone else in this meeting has the same problem in their town. And that's with Public Act 25-1. We are required to amend our zoning regulations to allow all sorts of building scenarios, which it is actually physically impossible to build in our town. And that's why they aren't there in the first place. And it's a very difficult concept to explain to the public. And I just became a couple months ago chair of planning and zoning, and I don't know, it's hard even for members of our planning and zoning commission to understand that you have to adopt these new regs, even though it's impossible to actually build according to them if you have no water and no sewers. And your commercial districts are along state roads. You can't do what they're saying you can do. So I don't I need support and intellectual ammunition just to survive the public hearing that we're going to have, which is going to be a bloodbath because people are going to say, you want to do what in our town? We've never allowed that. This is folly. And it would be folly if we ignored public safety and public health to allow it. We're not going to, but we are required to have those regs on our books. So how do I explain this to the public in a way that they'll understand and accept the need to do this, even though it will become permissible, but it will not make it possible. So permissible equals not possible. I need help here.
So Frank, if I may,
Yes, go ahead, Sam.
yeah. So I think the way you need to frame it is this, is that unlike everything else in your commissioners' careers on land use commissions, this is not something that they are deciding. This has been decided for us by the General Assembly. It is in statute, and whether you amend your zoning regulations or not, you have to deal with it.
Right.
But the statute has given the towns some important regulatory powers here. First of all, you can do a site plan review in which you can set the development standards for such uses. And this new process called summary review has a very important statement in the part of statute about summary review that that it won't impact public health and safety. And so there are provisions. So your role as commissioner is to mitigate. You're not allowing this development. The General Assembly has allowed this development on you. You are trying to mitigate the impact of what the General Assembly has permitted. And I think you need to frame it that way, that if you do not act as objectionable as people in your town might find what you're trying to adopt, what could be possible would be worse, in their opinion. So I think that's how you need to portray this, is you are mitigating. The General Assembly has given you the power to regulate, and given you the power to, when individual applications come in, to deny those applications based on health and safety. And I think it's important that, since health and safety are in the summary review language in the statutes, that you have a good understanding maybe of your town attorney, or have references in a regulation about health and safety that sort of explain what some of those health and safety concerns are in your town, that you'll have good grounds to deny that site plan when it comes in.
Yeah.
Is there a body of, I'm sorry, is there a body of case law or precedent or definitions for health and safety that can apply with the new reg versus what's been done for the last, 20, 50 years?
Health and safety, there's lots of case law about health and safety. I think that would be relevant, although I am not an attorney.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good point, Thomas, because like for us, what we're putting together in part uses that health and safety component, particularly like along Main Street, where we only have one lane in each direction. So if you had to get a fire truck through or an ambulance, you couldn't have places with no parking, and the people were parking on the street, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some good case law that can be used for that, I think, although I'm not an attorney either. But that's the direction that we're going in Durham. Beth,
Is
go
that
ahead.
is that kind of any research that maybe we could fund or have on a regional basis, or with all the cogs?
I'd ask Sam that question.
Yeah, okay. Just for consideration. Thanks. Okay,
All
I'm
right,
done.
thank you. Beth, go
I'm
ahead.
I'm just curious to know, and maybe Mary knows the answer to this. How many towns are in the situation that Mary's in where there is no sewer, there is no water? How many towns in our RiverCOG region or in the other regions? Are there a lot of towns that are facing this issue, and curious exactly how they're bringing it forward?
Megan or Sam, you want to take that?
So I'll just say that there are plenty of towns who don't have sewer and water. So this is so Lyme is not unique in that. This this law requires, 2 to 9 unit developments. Doing a two-family house on sewer, on septic and well is very doable. Doing a 9 unit building will definitely be more challenging, all depending on your soils and the availability of a well. I think that's kind of I think that's what Mary is referring to, is that it, it's all about the natural carrying capacity of the land. And maybe if you had incredibly good soils and also on that same lot, a really good place for a well, and it all kind of flowed downhill. So, the septic effluent is going away from the well. You could maybe do 9 units, and they could be 9 small units with one bathroom each or something. But it's a lot of these things are about the natural carrying capacity of the land if you're relying on the land for both your supply of drinking water and a waste disposal. I think that's what Mary is reflecting. The apartment complex that's next to the old Saybrook train station, that's on septic, but that was because it was on really good soil for that, but it has public water.
Right.
Yeah,
So.
I think if I may, I would add to that that a lot of the changes that we saw from PA 25-1 revolve around the idea that zoning is the be all and end all of problems that stop us from
Hello?
building housing, and we know that to not be the whole case. So I think they're targeting solutions only on zoning. I don't think they thought that far as far as the carrying capacity of land. So I think they will find that we can change all the zoning regulations we want. And in some cases, you still won't see that development.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very perceptive, Megan, because you're absolutely right. Zoning changes cannot change the character of the land, which Sam pointed out, and our land is by and large very ledgy and difficult to it's difficult to install a well, to drill a well, much less put in a septic system, and there isn't much soil to absorb what comes out of that septic system. So that's why, we have such big zoning lots, is it takes a lot of land to process the waste from one house. Um,
Well, and then there's the other issue here is that, you know, the way that things should work is that the health district or your health department should be working in sync with your planning and your zoning. So applications aren't coming in places that the health district can't approve a development. Well, now you're sort of punting. So you might be in a situation where planning and zoning has no choice but to approve, but they'll never get approval from the health district. And and that is going to cause conflict, but and probably put political pressure on the health department or the health district. But this as Megan observed, the issue here is that the assumption is that zoning is the only impediment to development when the actual form of the land, wetlands, ledge, is there's the ability to put in a septic system, all those different things do matter too. Frank, I did see that Alec had his hand raised earlier.
Yeah,
I
I
just
just
I just wanted to say
Oh,
thanks for
oh,
that conversation because that helped me better understand all of it. So
oh, good.
thanks to all of you for answering that question.
You're welcome.
so I'd just like to say that Killingworth is in the same boat. We have no water, we have no sewage. Um, and listening to tonight, it just would seem that incrementally over the years, the state is taking away, as Frank said, the powers or the whatever you want to call them of the planning and zoning and all the different departments, inland wetland, everything. They're just incrementally, year by year, nibbling away at everything. And so the state will be calling as a blanket situation as opposed to taking into an individual situation, which basically the zoning so far has been. Um, it's just going downhill from the state.
Yeah. Well, and instead of the multiple different, decision-making bodies working in sync, it will cause there to be conflicts. As I just your health department won't be able to approve something that planning and zoning just approved.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the other thing is, it opens up everything. It's a developer's paradise.
Right.
Yeah. They would just swarm in and say, "We're going to build this here, and we'd like to build this." We talked about the whole situation in the industrial zones and this, that, and the other, and they're talking about 1 acre zoning in Killingworth, which Killingworth has a 2 acre zoning, providing that the soils and all the rest are in line. And multiple family housing uh, on postage stamps. It gets quite ridiculous.
Well, I think there's also a flip side here, is that since the viewpoint is that the problem is completely the towns and the zoning, it's actually doing us a disservice because there's other things that are keeping housing that's affordable from being built.
Mhm.
And labor, materials, land are all expensive. But furthermore, what was interesting was we had a comment from someone at one of our meetings who said 2 to 9 units, that's not big enough to be able to make a profit. And developers, they call this a missing middle. One of the reasons why it's a missing middle is that someone has to be able to make money on building it. And it's not just the zoning regulations, it's the profitability, because
Right.
some of the margins on some of these developments, particularly on the lower end, are very thin, and you need volume of units to be able to make your money back. And
Mhm.
and so yes, you're going to get a little bit of regulatory relief for your 9 unit development, but it may not pencil out enough for you to even pursue it in the first place. So I think the message here is that zoning is not the only impediment to developing housing in the right places. And I think we're going to see that as this moves forward.
Right. All right, Ray, go ahead. You got the
All
floor.
right, thank you. I'll try to keep this brief. So I guess, well, so to Sam's comment about developers, so there are many smaller developers, local developers who can make money off the middle housing. Larger developers want volume. So there are some local players that can actually do that well and can be thoughtful and supportive in local towns. So I would say
Right.
that. But I guess back to my question to Susie and all these housing bills, who's informing our legislators around what this should look like? And why are we fielding this on this level? And is it, and please forgive me, I'm new to Lyme. I've only been here a year. Thrilled to be in Connecticut and Lyme, but I'm new to this process. So like who's driving this? Is this a state agency that's driving a planning document that's pushing to legislators that we have to do this? Or is this lobbyists or who's driving this content so that these legislators are putting forth these bills with this that we're now contending with? Like, where's this coming? What's the genesis of
So,
this?
so I think we can go back maybe 5, 6 years with the General Assembly and legislators really going into housing policy and housing bills. And I think PA 25-1, which we're now dealing with, is I think as much about housing as it is about politics as well. There was a bill in the last session, House Bill 5002, that passed the General Assembly back in June of last year and got vetoed by the governor. And I think this special session that this was passed in was meant to clear the table for the legislators in election year. So I think politics had a lot to do with it. And I also think that there's one other element is that remember that special sessions are meant for emergencies. So you don't have the same public hearing process or testimony that you would have in a normal session. And so there wasn't the public review and comment that you would have in a normal bill, where you would have a nice folder full of comments. Some of them useful and some of them not useful, but you for and against. But it didn't have any. There was no transparency here. So yeah, this is sometimes what you get.
Unfortunate though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. I think we got a lot, went through a lot tonight. Before we get to adjournment, I just want to recognize Eddie Alberino for being on our committee and for the work that he does in so many fields. We wish him well as he leaves us after tonight's meeting. But Eddie, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh,
With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you,
God
Alex.
God bless all you people. Thank you very much.
I'll take
Same
that as
to
a
you, Eddie.
second.
Yeah, that's a second, right, Eddie?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hearing
Bye-bye.
none, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining, I declare the motion passed. Have a good evening, all.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone.
Take care.
You too.
Good
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
night.
everybody.
You.
Good night.